People can get affected by evil in more ways than one, and it can destroy their lives completely. However, for the villains themselves, the path of evil is usually a way for someone to find a new purpose in life. This is why one chooses the path of evil, despite the negative consequences towards someone's life. YEEHAW soldiers, it's your boy, the Anime Sage, coming at you from another video, and this is What If Deku Was a Villain Part 2. So, after the success of Part 1, here is Part 2, a little over a week later. So, yeah, this should be pretty good. However, before we get into the story, as usual, in terms of videos coming up, I have a couple of videos in mind, such as the Fall of Bakugan and Legacy Chapters 32 for 34. I plan on posting the Bakugan video tomorrow, and then Legacy on Tuesday or Wednesday probably, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it out Monday. I could try it, but that isn't necessarily a good idea. And in terms of some of the other stuff on the usual checklist, make sure that you follow me on Twitter at AnimeStage4, Instagram anime_stage4, and join my Discord server, which is linked in the description. And I will give you all a reason for also joining us at the end of the video. Follow me on Twitch, which is linked in the description, for my podcast, and donate to my Patreon for once a nice rewards. And finally, if you have any fanfics you think I should read from my channel, be it Naruto, MHA, DBC, or something else, comment down both the name of the fanfic and leave a link to it so I can read it. If you haven't seen Part 1, I will leave a link to that in the description. Now, let's get into the story. The dead body of Inko is laying on the ground, and Izuku and his father Mind Crusher are extremely excited, for their reign of terror can begin. One may question why these two would want to kill Inko, but it makes perfect sense when you think about it. While they could mind control her, she is completely useless in terms of being used as an asset. Her telekinesis quirk is very weak. Plus, since she helped Izuku on the path of darkness, why not give her the same treatment as many more victims to come? It's only fitting. Izuku looks to his father and says, "Now, what do we do?" Mind Crusher says, "Now, we make sure the body disappears, and when people question us, we are a worried father and son who just want to see our Inko come home. And then we can start our plans." Izuku smiles, and Mind Crusher will grab some hydrofluoric acid, which he will use to dissolve Inko's body. Quick note, if you have watched the TV show Breaking Bad, you know where I got this idea from. And please, watch Breaking Bad, it is such a good show. Anyways, as Dr. Garaki provides them with the acid, they dump Inko's body into the container, and all that remains of her is red sludge. The doctor will look to dispose of her, and Mind Crusher will go back to the United States in order to make sure no one notices he is in Japan. When the news breaks of Inko's quote-unquote disappearance, both Izuku and Mind Crusher will go with their plan, acting like a worried father and son who just want to hope that their mother/wife is alive and hopes that she comes home, and whoever the villain behind this is, they get brought to justice. The fools, they think to themselves, easily falling for something like that. It'll be great when Hero Society falls. Maybe there will be less people who are this foolish. Dr. Garaki talks to Izuku and asks, "So, have you thought about a name?" Izuku asks, "You mean a villain name?" Garaki nods, and Izuku says, "Actually, yeah, I decided to come up with a name that is similar to my father's villain name, and that name is Mindbreaker." Garaki thinks himself for a bit and says, "Not bad, though there is something about the name that feels a bit off, like it is a tag of some site you visit, but I can't think of it right now." Izuku thinks for a bit and then just shrugs it off and says, "It's probably not that important." Garaki nods and says, "Mindbreaker it is then." Izuku then says, "Though when Bakugo and I face off, I will be Deku, and he will find out that Deku isn't so useless after all." Deku has a dark look on his face, which shows he really wants to make Bakugo suffer the most, which is understandable, as he was a main catalyst for his pain. Garaki says, At the moment, I would think you need to consider working for me as an intern to cover your tracks. Since the heroes are not suspicious of me, I will be able to cover for you. Plus, you may get to meet my boss very soon, a man whose exploits can only be described as legendary. All for one. Izuku smiles and will take the internship. Also, I do want to say something real quick. Izuku will be living alone for the majority of the story, and that might seem off, but I believe in Japan it can work out based on parental consent, so I wouldn't worry about that. Anyways, back to the story. Izuku decides to tell Bakugo about his internship, and Bakugo will say, I guess it's better than you holding on to your dreams of being a hero, Deku. Go for that internship and stay there, and don't ever think about being a hero ever again. Bakugo will walk away, and Izuku will say, oh, just wait, Bakugo. When I am done with my reign of terror, you will wish I had become a hero, because hero society is not ready for the threat of Mindbreaker. Before Bakugo leaves, he also says, oh yeah, I'm sorry about your mom. I hope whoever kidnapped her pays dearly for it. And then Bakugo leaves. Izuku just grins. Izuku will do as he said and work with Dr. Garaki. On the surface, it seems like an internship given out by a kind doctor helping a poor 14 to 15-year-old boy because he lost his mom. But in reality, it's just a way for Izuku to gain an alibi. Izuku then looks for his next couple targets. They are Bakugo's friends, people who were a part of Bakugo's life, and they, too, made his life a living hell. They will die today, and Bakugo will probably not know what happened since they are supposed to go to different schools. As it will turn out, they aren't even going to be there when school starts for them. Izuku will follow one of Bakugo's friends, and Izuku will corner one of Bakugo's friends who has a wing quirk. The lackey says, who's there? You want to fight me? Izuku, who is wearing a hood and mask, will just stare at the lackey with cold, dark eyes, and will just lift up his hand, and will instead take control of his mind. The lackey says, what do you want me to do, master? In a lifeless voice. Izuku grins evilly and says, walk to the nearest bridge, and then... The lackey nods and will walk towards the nearest bridge. Izuku smiles and will just walk away from the scene. The next day, news of the death of a teenage boy via seppuku off a bridge spreads on TV. Bakugo will see the television and will feel emotions of anger and sadness. Sadness that his friend is now gone, and anger from not understanding why he did it. Bakugo and his family will be at the funeral, and a lot of people will mourn his loss. But not Izuku, who just showed up at the funeral. Izuku smiles as he can feel the pain Bakugo is going through right now. Serves him right. As he looks around, he sees the grieving parents of Bakugo's friend, and Izuku feels a split second of wondering if what he did was right. Did that kid actually deserve it? Should his parents have to suffer because of the sins of his child? Nah, who cares? He deserved it, along with the rest of the people who made him into a villain. There will be people who will feel the loss of some of the people who Izuku will kill, but that's just how life goes sometimes. In pursuit of vengeance, everyone loses, except the one looking for vengeance. Or, at least that is what Izuku thinks. Izuku will leave the funeral when it is over, and he will go for his next target. However, first off, Garaki has someone who Izuku should meet. In an underground lab, there is a man whose presence feels so sinister that even Izuku is taken aback by it. Dr. Garaki will say, my child, let me introduce to you the greatest villain ever. All for One. All for One looks at Izuku and says, well, if it isn't the son of Mind Crusher. It is good to finally meet you, young Izuku. Or should I say Mindbreaker? Izuku says, it's nice to meet you, All for One. All for One says, I have heard a lot about your abilities, and I must say, I am impressed with some of your accomplishments so far. However, make sure you can cover your tracks and don't do anything reckless, because the last thing we need is to have someone find out you are committing these murders. Do you understand? Izuku nods and All For One says, "Now, with that settled, I want you to consider one thing for me." Izuku asks, "What is that?" All For One says, "How about you join a league that is being created? A league of villains. There are other individuals already there, including someone you may like in Tomura Shigaraki. What do you say?" Izuku thinks for a bit and says, "I want to continue my own work at the moment. Your league hasn't done anything yet in the grand scheme of things, and it would be foolish to join an organization that hasn't proven itself yet. If the organization proves itself with a couple of major attacks on civilians or heroes, then I will consider joining." All For One says, "But the league is sponsored by me, so it should be something you are interested in." Izuku grins and says, "While that is true, if I recall, you were defeated by All Might, and because of that, your society was allowed to prosper. You may have created a reign of terror once, but you are also the reason why everything that led me to this path happened. Maybe I should thank you, but I think I could have lived without the discrimination of being quirkless. Now, if your league proves itself to me, then I will consider the offer. And if or when I join, I will not have my work be interfered with or interrupted by league matters. I still have people to kill at the end of the day, and plenty more people who need to suffer. Do we have a deal?" All For One ponders for a bit and then says, "Alright, if that is all you ask for, I'm sure me and the league can make it happen. Though I will say, you do have a big mouth, boy. I would watch it if I were you. You never know when your attitude pisses off the wrong person." Izuku grins and says, "I'll keep that in mind." Izuku then leaves and Garaki will say, "I apologize for his attitude, All For One." All For One says, "No need. If he wants my league to prove itself first and wants to make sure he can accomplish his goals, he will be accommodated for. Having an ally like him is very crucial to my plans, for if he can use his powers to their full potential, he will be far stronger than any of the heroes in the world, and will make my plan so much easier. Now, if you excuse me, Dr. Garaki, I need to attend to some business. I suggest you do the same." Garaki nods and All For One leaves. Meanwhile, Izuku will go and call his father, and Mind Crusher will say, "Izuku, why are you calling me?" Izuku says, "Father, All For One met with me today." Mind Crusher then says, "Really? He must be impressed with what you have done so far if he wants to meet with you. What did he say?" Izuku says, "He wanted me to join something called the League of Villains." Mind Crusher says, "Well, did you say yes?" Izuku says, "No. All For One's failure caused my pain. If he wants me to be a part of his league, he and his league are going to have to prove themselves." Mind Crusher says, "You know, Izuku, not many would have been inclined to deny something from All For One. I'm surprised he even let you leave without saying yes. But if you don't want to join his league at the moment, I won't stop you." Izuku nods and will then look to handle his next victim, Bakugo's other lackey, or friend, who he takes care of with ease using his mind control part of his quirk. This time commanding the lackey to swan dive off a building. Bakugo told that to him once. Just seems like justice that he should have to experience that himself. Maybe it will teach him not to go around saying that type of stuff. But then again, maybe not. Izuku will appear at the funeral for Bakugo's other lackey, and this time he decides to talk to Bakugo. Izuku will say, "I am so sorry, Bakugo. I know something like this isn't easy to deal with. If you need me to talk with you, I will be there." Bakugo looks at Izuku and thinks for a bit before walking away. Izuku thinks that he may be able to get closer to Bakugo, and that is great, as it is going to be such an amazing feeling to become friends with him, only to crush him with the truth. Though, Izuku needs to find more victims. At the moment, all the people he has killed have all been a part of the original classes he was in, and therefore all of them have been associated with him at one time. It might not be a good idea to restrict his targets to just former teachers and classmates, and he will need to find new victims at some point in order to get potential investigators off of his trail. That is what he needs to do the most. He cannot reveal himself as a villain yet. Not now. He needs more victims. He needs to spill more blood. If people find out he is a villain, the people he wants to kill will be put under surveillance, and it will make killing his would-be victims a bit more difficult. Not too difficult, but still difficult. He also can't kill Bakugo now because, again, he wants to save him for later. Killing random people is a possibility, but if he kills or tries to kill the wrong person, it could be it for him. This is something he is going to have to figure out for himself. Meanwhile, we look at Bakugo, who is thinking to himself. He's thinking about what has happened over these past couple months. One of his classmates got murdered, his best friends are now gone, and even Deku's mom has disappeared. One of the only good things that has happened is that Deku has actually wanted to help him, so at least he didn't completely burn that bridge, because who knows what he would do if he was forced to bear all this pain alone. Bakugo thinks to himself, who knew I would become friends with Deku? I guess that's how the universe works. Then, Mitsuki Bakugo, his mom, calls him down, and in the living room is a detective. The detective says, "So, you're Katsuki Bakugo?" Bakugo asks, "Yeah, what do you want with me?" The detective says, "Your mom thought you should be a part of this because the information that I have concerns your recently deceased friends." Bakugo says, "Huh? What do you mean?" "Can you and your mom sit down?" asks the detective. Both of them sit down, and then the detective says, "As you know, within the past month, both of your friends have died, correct?" "Yeah, they committed seppuku," says Bakugo, not really wanting to talk about this topic. The detective says, "Yes, that's what the police and the coroner initially ruled. But after the result of the autopsy came back, we have a different theory as to what happened to your two friends." Bakugo says, "Eh? What do you mean?" The detective says, "We believe that your friends were murdered, most likely by a mind control quirk user." Bakugo and Mitsuki's eyes widen. Bakugo says, "Murdered? But who did it?" The detective says, "We don't know. Whoever murdered these two was able to cover their tracks extremely well. All we know is that at some point, these two met with someone with a mind control quirk. The person then tells them to jump off a bridge and a building, respectively, and they fell to their deaths without no resistance. We will do everything we can to bring this person to justice, but as of right now, we have no leads. This is why I am here, to see if you know anyone with a quirk like this." Bakugo shakes his head, and the detective sighs. "Well, if you don't know such a person, I will have to take my investigations somewhere else. At least you two know the truth. I will be off now, and I am so sorry for your losses." The detective leaves, and Bakugo just looks down, and Mitsuki says, "Are you alright, Katsuki?" Bakugo says, "Yeah, I am." And then Bakugo will go to his room. In reality, he is not fine. He is feeling a mix of so many emotions: anger, sadness, but most of all, fear. Bakugo isn't someone who is prone to fear, but in this case, he feels a whole lot of it. Imagine someone having the quirk to make you fall to your death, or do something else to yourself, or even worse, someone who has that kind of power can make someone a slave, making them do their dirty work till they are cast aside, and there isn't anything they can really do about it. What if he is next? What if he dies just like his friends did? All his hopes and dreams are all gone in an instant, all because of this one person who can kill someone by controlling their minds. Bakugo then says to himself, "No! I can't let myself be afraid of this. If I do, I'll end up just like my friends. I must get stronger. I must get stronger so I can bring that person who murdered them to justice. Yeah, that's what I will do. I will get stronger, and that villain will regret messing with my friends. I swear on it." Bakugo then decides to work harder than ever before and get stronger. Not because he wants to become the #1 hero, not because he wants to get some money and stuff that comes with it, but to get stronger to avenge his friends. Hopefully, when he meets this villain, he'll be ready to stop him from murdering anyone else and avenge his friends. Little does he know, the villain in question is a lot closer to him than he could have ever imagined. Izuku the next day decides to watch the television for a bit and sees that on the news, investigators are looking for a suspect in the case of the murders of Bakugo's friends. Izuku thinks to himself, "Dad did warn me about this. Good thing I kept my tracks covered very well. Most likely, they have no leads. If they went to Bakugo, they would get no leads from him either, as he knows no one with a mind control quirk. Good thing I kept my quirk a secret from everyone." Izuku then says, "I think the next thing I have to do is to make sure I continue to cover my tracks. I need to kill more people in different ways. That way detectives may think they are dealing with 2 villains, when in reality, they're dealing with only 1 villain. I could also use the telekinesis part of my quirk to cause them to think they are dealing with 3 villains. There is no one on this earth who is known to have a quirk that can create a mind telekinesis force, control people to cause their own deaths, and destroy someone's mind with just one hand. A quirk like that is impossible, unless you are me." Izuku then says, "Alright, who is going to be my next target?" Izuku then gets a call from his cell phone, and it is from Bakugo. Izuku says, "Wonder what he wants." Izuku answers the phone and says, "Hello? Deku, come to the park. I have something to tell you," says Bakugo. Izuku thinks for a bit and says to himself, he must want to tell me the news about his friends. Izuku and Bakugo will meet at the park, and Bakugo will say, "Deku, do you know about what happened to my friends?" Izuku says, "I heard on the news that they were murdered. Someone with a mind control quirk killed them, investigators are saying." Bakugo nods and says, "I don't know who did this to them at all, but this entire ordeal has filled me with a new purpose. I want to bring the person who killed my friends to justice. That person is still out there, and I'll make sure that the villain can't harm anyone else. This I swear. I had initially wanted to become a hero for selfish reasons, but right now, I want to become a hero not only to avenge my friends and bring that villain to justice, but to also save people from a fate like being controlled to commit seppuku." Izuku asks, "Why are you telling me all this?" Bakugo says, "You idiot, because whether I like it or not, you are one of my only friends left, and you did tell me you would talk to me if I needed you to talk to me, like right now. But I'm also gonna warn you, make sure you protect yourself in any way possible. You do not have a quirk, which makes you more vulnerable than my now deceased friends. If you sense any danger coming towards you, run and hope a hero will come save you." Izuku nods and says, "Thank you, Gak-chan." Bakugo nods and says, "And you better scribble in that notebook as much as possible, because I am gonna wow you with how great of a hero I will become." Izuku smiles and says, I bet you will, Bakugo. Bakugo waves and says, well, I'm off. See you later, Deku. Izuku waves, and as Bakugo leaves, he says, oh, Bakugo, how naive you are. Try and become the strongest hero possible. You will still fall to me. Izuku then leaves and decides to start a reign of terror over the next couple of months to come. And over those months, more murders would occur, and investigators are having a hard time figuring out what is going on. Who are these people with such powerful quirks? Why are they killing so many people? Do they have grudges against the victims? Do they do this for kicks? Are they psychos? Those are all definitely possibilities. The investigators, like Izuku thought, believe that there are 3 people doing the murders. In reality, it's just one person with a very powerful quirk. And unfortunately, for the investigators, there are no leads. Investigators warn people to lock their doors and be very careful of walking at night. You may never know when you may be next. Izuku will then get a call from Bakugo, and he will say, Oi, Deku, I'm going to be taking the UA entrance exams tomorrow. Izuku says, good luck, man. I know you will pass. Bakugo smiles and says, you know it. Now, you do what you gotta do at your internship thing. By the way, how is that going? Izuku says, really good. Dr. Garaki may want to extend it to a whole year. He says I have a natural talent for this type of work. Bakugo nods and says, that's good. Be sure to heal many people along the way. Well, I got to focus on the exams. Talk to you later, Deku. Izuku says goodbye and then thanks himself for a bit. The UA entrance exams, huh? I could look to cause some chaos over there if I wanted to. Attack some of the students, figure out who will get in, who is strong, and maybe kill a couple prospects along the way. I could disguise myself, but if someone with a nose quirk with a high sense of smell, or a dog is able to sniff me out, it would blow my secret. I'll just watch the exams in secret. Izuku does so, and he will take a secret place to scout out the students. He also decides to mask his smell with some colognes and other stuff the doctor gave him. Izuku sees a bunch of students with interesting quirks. If he could control some of these students, he would have some very useful assets. Izuku will take some notes and will then leave the area. Izuku will head home and think to himself that UA is definitely a gold mine full of powerful quirks. A little while later, Izuku will hear that Bakugo was able to get into UA. Izuku congratulates Bakugo, and Izuku will later try to think of his next move. Izuku then gets a call from Garaki. He says, Izuku, someone wants to see you. Izuku nods and says, I'll be right there. Izuku and Garaki are always very careful when they talk on the phone. You never know if someone is listening to your calls. Izuku will go to the same underground lab that he met All For One, and All For One is there once again. Izuku says, hello, All For One. What do you want this time? All For One says, you said that you would only join my league if we proved ourselves, correct? Izuku nods and All For One says, well, how much would an attack on UA prove ourselves? Izuku thinks for a bit and says, I think something like that would be enough for me to join your organization, actually. All For One grins and says, well, my league has plans to at one point attack UA. I won't be the one commanding anyone though, but Shigaraki will be the one calling the shots. Izuku grins for a bit and says, you know, I was thinking of attacking UA myself at one point. Looks like our plans overlap. All For One grins and says, would you like to be a part of the attack? We are still figuring out when to do it, but I think that with your help, the attack will be more successful. Izuku ponders for a bit and then says, if our plans overlap like this, I can't see why not. But if this Shigaraki and this league does not impress me, it will be the last attack I will ever take part in with your league. Do we have a deal? All For One nods and both Izuku and All For One shake hands. As weeks go by, Izuku is talking with Bakugo while he goes back to his usual business of murdering people. Izuku wonders how good the Shigaraki guy is if All For One is willing to trust him so much. He also wonders what the plan will be when they finally attack UA. A little while later, Izuku gets another call from Garaki about the plans. Izuku will take a look at them and sees that the League will be planning to attack Class 1A on a UA field trip at USJ. What Izuku also learns is shocking. All Might is not as strong as he once was, and he can only use his power for a limited amount of time. If that is the case, Class 1A will be extremely vulnerable to an attack, especially if All Might has done hero work before the trip, which he most likely will. Izuku sees that they will also be testing out the Nomu that Garaki created to attack the students and heroes there. Izuku grins and says, "These plans are solid. This league at least knows what it's doing." Izuku grins evilly and says, "I think it is time the world becomes aware of the villain, Mind Breaker." What will happen at USJ? Find out in the next part. Thank you all for watching part 2 of What If Deku Was a Villain. I definitely made this part very interesting because not only is Izuku actively killing people within these next couple of months, unlike in Virtual Canon, where he was training his body to receive One for All, but I also like the interactions I've created here in the story with him and Bakugo, and him and All For One. I think that's pretty good, and I think that a lot of people will like the direction the story is going, and I don't expect the series to go on for a very long time because Izuku with this quirk is probably going to end Hero Society very, very quickly. So I expect the series to go on for like, I don't know, 6 parts in total, but it's still a great series, and I hope you guys enjoy along the way. Anyways, in terms of some other stuff, again, make sure you stay tuned for the Fall of Bakugan video, along with Legacy Chapters 32 for 34. And if you want to suggest to me any MHA, Naruto, and DBZ fanfics, comment the name of it down below in the comments and link to where I can read it. Watch my community tab like a hawk, that is really important. And finally, follow me on Twitter for some funny stuff over there, the ability to interact with me directly because I'm the most active over there. And also, you can also get another way to get notified of my videos if you follow me on Twitter. So again, follow me on Twitter at AnimeStage4. Instagram is anime_stage4, and you follow me for memes and just about it. I'm not really active on Instagram, but I still have it. So if you want to DM me or something like that, you can follow me on Instagram or there, and I might answer you, I might not, who knows. And by the way, Instagram is anime_stage4. And finally, join my Discord server, which is linked down in the description, for another way to interact with me. And also, you get to see my thumbnails pretty early, and you get another way to get notified of my videos. And yeah, that's about it for Discord. So follow me on Twitter at AnimeStage4, Instagram anime_stage4, and join my Discord server. Shout out to my $10 patrons and my $50 patron Anguish. If you want to support me and get rewards to shoutouts like these, I have a link to my Patreon in the description. So yeah, if you want to support me, donate over there. And finally, if you want to see my podcast, go to my Twitch, which is linked in the description. Thank you guys for 43K. Let's get to 44K and hopefully eventually 50K. Alright, that's about it. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share the video. This has been your boy, the Anime Sage. Sign out. Peace. YEEHAW. Semi-Shay. Close out. Bye-bye. Peace.
Hi, this is Stephanie Shea, voice actress for Sailor Moon, Hinata, Orihime, and you are watching Anime Sage.